There might be fewer players, but there's never a lack of exciting action. This is the statewide Idaho 8-Man Prepcast with Brandon Baney and Paul Kingsbury.
That's right. It is the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, presented by the Idaho Division of Public Health. Brandon Baney with, hey, look who we found hiding under the covers. Paul Kingsbury, what's going on?
It's good to be back. I actually looked at our Prepcast stats for the 8-Man Prepcast, and I saw the numbers dwindling the last couple of weeks. And so I figured I better come back and kick Will out so our numbers came back.
Yeah, Mr. Big Shot for sure. We thought you were ducking us because your bold prediction of Kendrick got shut out by Oakley 40-0, but they've since rebounded. So we thought you were trying to lay low after one of your
never would I do that. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was nice having Will on the last couple of shows, and we'll bring Will back on as we get
definitely
further down the line because he is such a great 8-man resource. But people seem to like you, Paul. So we need that face out front sometimes.
It's just I have a big family, and so all my family watches it, and that's where the numbers come from. That's all it is. It's not people like it. It's just they feel obligated to because they're my family. I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll take the numbers however we can get them.
True.
That's for sure.
That's true.
So you can get the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast a couple of different ways. You can get the audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. Video version is on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel as well as our Facebook page. And this is every week. We're breaking down all the 1A athletics / 8-man football stories around the state of Idaho. Paul, the biggest story came yesterday as the IHSAA held its September meeting at Wood River High School in Haley. That's I can think of a lot of worse places you could hold a meeting. That's for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Good scenery. The big news was, of course, all of the reclassification petitions that schools put forth to either move up or stay down a classification level. As it pertains to the 1A level, the big story or the big change that we'll have moving forward, Paul, is that schools will now be able to compete at a lower level for football only. So if you're a 2A program, or for example, Wood River is normally a 4A program, but next year in football, they will play 3A football. So there's schools that are able to play down a level in football only, which I think is great. I think that's going to be fantastic.
And people have been pushing this for, I've been hearing about it for 20 years, and it's always been, you move up or down and everybody moves you with you. You can't just move in one sport. And I don't know. I see both sides of it, but I think that I think it's a slippery slope because, now you can petition down for football. You know what? Our baseball team really sucks, and so our baseball team would really like to petition down too. So, are we just going to throw out classifications altogether at some point down the road when different schools want to go up and down for different sports? And what happens when a powerhouse turns into a non-powerhouse, which happens in high school sports where, hey, we're petitioning here, but now they're really good, they're really bad. So it's going to be a constant back and forth, and that's just for football. And then if you get into, basketball, those guys saying, hey, that's not fair. How come we can petition down for football, but not for cross country or soccer or softball? And it's going to turn into, I think a Pandora's box has been opened that maybe, I don't know. I'm not in favor of it just for that. I agree that there's some teams that just struggle, and unfortunately there's teams that struggle. And, there's the idea of, well, if you don't want to struggle, get better. Sometimes it's numbers. You can't. But my opinion is, I think it opened up a box that maybe is going to be regretted down the road. And I think maybe sooner rather than later, when everybody looks around and says, hey, I want to petition down for my sport too. And at that point, it's going to be, the Wild West out there where you've got 5As that really have one team playing 5A maybe. So I don't know. I've never been in favor of the idea of one sport being allowed to move up or down. I haven't. And I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be regretted down the road sooner rather than later. My opinion.
Interesting. Okay. I think football is different though from those other sports simply because of the numbers of players that are required to safely participate, right? In baseball, we see 1A teams all the time that have 10 or 11 players, and they can get by with that because multiple kids can come in and pitch. You can move kids around. In volleyball, basketball, those are smaller numbers, right? You can get by having 7 or 8 kids in a program.
Right.
For basketball. Football
But
is go ahead.
oh, I'm just saying, you can't rationalize anything positive for football with other sports, as far as like their coaches and the diehards, because everyone looks at football anyway as getting whatever they want in the schools. They're the money sport, and so a lot of there's 4 home games a year, and they spend more money on the facilities than anywhere else, and because it's a economy driven sport, and I get that, and I'm not downplaying that. What I'm saying is the other sports are already feeling like that they're the redheaded stepchild anyway, and so when you've got a team that is not good, okay, why can't we petition down? And it's explaining to them the reasons. It won't matter. It won't matter. And if it does, it's just going to cause hard feelings. So whether it happens or not, I think there's going to be contention. It's going to create more division and contention than there already was, fair or not. And maybe I can kind of restate what I've said, where I'm not really for or against, I guess, the idea of it. It's more I can see down the road and see what's going to happen because of the decision. And with that, I prefer to have the least amount of conflict and division, especially in high school sports, as possible. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case, over the last, 5, 6, 10 years. It seems to be getting more contentious, and throwing a little bit of gas on the fire like this. I could be really overreacting on it, but I like to always look long-term on things, not short-term. And long-term, I see it turning contentious when one sport can do it, other sports are going to want to do it too.
Right. I think I'm I agree with you probably like 60% of the way. I do think it's
good
in football. It's a numbers thing. If you are a Wood River and you can barely fill your varsity roster with 25 players, and you don't have a JV or a freshman team, and you're having to play a Twin Falls high school that has plush numbers in all 3 programs, like it's going to be better for Wood River to match up with those smaller 3A schools, only because of the numbers, and in football, especially, to safely have a football team. Some schools are having to play guys both ways the entire way, which isn't safe or healthy for any players. So from a football numbers perspective, I get it in terms of trying to build numbers back up in your program. So
no, you're right. You're right. And I think this might be a good discussion later on for its own little Prepcast.
Yes.
When you dive into, girls basketball programs that have a hard time getting players, and so they're petitioning to have 8th graders play on their varsity team because they can't. Well, hey, we'd like to move down, or anyway, it's a rabbit hole we could go down, but this is the 8-man Prepcast. We should probably get a hard left and get back to it.
Yeah, well, you talked about allowing 8th graders to play basketball. 2 schools did get approved for that at this IHSAA meeting. Mackey and Deary will be allowed to use 8th graders for basketball this year, and we see that happens from time to time at the 1A level. So, okay, as it pertains to 1A football, 5 schools are 1A D1, but next year we'll play 1A D2 football. So they will move down a level. And most of them are up north, but you have Castleford and Shoshone from District 4. So Castleford was going to move up, right? And except for football now, they'll go back down to D2. And then it's all the teams that are up north: Lakeside, Lewis County, and Wallace. So what's going to happen on the statewide level for 1A D1 football? Well, right now, District 1 is Wallace and Lakeside. If they both move down to D2, there's no more District 1, which means the White Pine League is the only league up north.
Right. And we've talked about it over the years of watching these conferences consolidate as this happens, as others get smaller. You've got a 2 or 3 team conference. Eventually, they're going to get cannibalized by the conferences around them. It just has to happen. You look at there was possibility of, and it was in fact a reality when Twin Falls was 5A, and Magic Valley is out there on this island. And so if you're a 5A team, like Canyon Ridge, where Twin Falls goes back to 5A, they're going to have to play in Eastern Idaho, and all of a sudden every conference game is a trip of 400 miles. And then it gets into cost, it gets into kids missing school. And so, there's a lot of things that play into all of this, but seeing, those smaller towns up north, a lot of times it's not fair for those teams to be in a 1 or 2 team league, and really not be able to play anybody in your state. So I like it. I mean, I think we all saw that the White Pine League was going to absorb a lot of those teams eventually anyway, and I think we're here.
Yeah, so it'll be nice for District 1 now at the D2 level. You've got a 5-team conference basically starting next year. Wallace, Clark Fork, Mullen, St. Regis, Kootenai, and also Lakeside, who dropped down. So now instead of Lakeside and Wallace playing each other twice a year, and Clark Fork and Mullen and Kootenai all playing each other twice a year, you can have a 5-team conference and fill out a conference schedule. And I think it'll work out a lot better up north. So
yep, 100% agree. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Not just 60% like you agree with me.
You like that number, don't you? That's going to be.
You'll never hear about it again, I promise.
Right. Okay, let's focus on what's going on in 8-man football now, though. Let's start at the D1 level. It was kind of a lighter schedule last week. A lot of teams had last week off. We're kind of in the time of year where it's the harvest, right, Paul? So schools try to give their kids a week off.
Yeah, and that harvest week, it used to be really big in Eastern Idaho. The potatoes and the sugar beets, and now it's. It's still a week off, but then you get into October and you get the hunting season. Teacher in service is what they call it, but it's really teachers go hunting. But great, they get that week off, they get a week to rest, which I think is great. And it's kind of moved into this week as well. There's a lot of cross classification games this year in the 8-man, or this week in the 8-man games, and some of the bigger conferences are just getting into conference, or smaller ones into conference play. And so it's this week of the season, that last week of September and that first weekend of October, that you really see the conference standings. Like after this week, like if we took a screenshot of the conference standings right now and then looked at the conference standings on Saturday, you're going to see teams moving everywhere because they've got one game in conference so far, or no games. And all of a sudden, like a notice, they don't have any conference games yet. I think they're 3-1 and they're, towards the bottom of their conference because they haven't played a conference game. Well, they're going to come out and play Idaho City, I think, this week.
Yep.
And so, what happens when Notice comes out and beats Idaho City, who's, I think, number 2, they're going to get bumped up. So this is really the conference standing shuffle weekend that's always fun to see, because you can really see those teams solidify where they really should be, because it's a crapshoot right now, especially you guys that vote in the poll every week to look at conference standings and go, I don't know. And you have to look at records and who they played. And after this week, it really gets a little bit easier to look at conference standings and go, okay. And then they start to really fill their place in where they stay the rest of the year. Maybe, a team will go up or down, depends on who they beat. But after this weekend, you really start to see those conference standings solidify.
Yep. In the media poll, the top 5 for the 1A D1 ranks, it pretty much stayed the same, except for a big change at the bottom and number 5. So let's just recap real quick. The top ranked team continues to be Oakley. They shut out Murtaugh 54-0. I don't think we're too surprised by that. Prairie continues to be the second ranked team. They defeated Potlatch 64-28. Raft River is the third ranked team. They blew past Lighthouse Christian in their conference opener 72-26. The Lions are now 0-4, by the way, and really behind the 8 ball. And then the number 4 team continues to be Butte County. They didn't play last week. So kind of chalk at the top. Is there anything you want to talk about with those 4 teams specifically?
Well, Butte County is really come out and shown that they're for real this year, and they're so stinking young. I think they've got 4 seniors on the team. They're just a really, really young team, and they really have come back well. They were Lost Rivers a couple of years ago, played in the championship when they combined with Mackey, and then they had a pretty down year too. And now they're really coming back, and they've got a really great team. And we'll talk about that game between them and Dietrich that I'll be at this weekend. But Butte County is one that I'm really looking forward to see the rest of the year. I mean, they're great. You've had success in the beginning, but it's really that second half of the season where you really kind of show what your mettle is and see what kind of team you are.
Yeah, the big change came at the number 5 spot in the poll. Genesee had been the 5th ranked team. They played Lapwai on Friday night, and Lapwai just blew past Genesee 70-36. So Lapwai now the 5th ranked team in the poll, deservedly so. Titus Yearout had missed a game or two. He was back for Lapwai last Friday. And now we have to start talking about, is Lapwai the second best team in the White Pine League behind Prairie?
I think so. We watched Lapwai play at the 8-man classic at Middleton, and between Yearout and Sage Lone Bear, I mean, they've got a lot of players, but I mean, Lone Bear, he's going to be a D1 player, easy. He's just a big, strong, smart kid. And then you've got Titus Yearout as the skill position behind him. I mean, that's a really great 1-2 combo for an 8-man team. And so, yeah, if you got everybody back and healthy, I really think that Lapwai is a very close second in that White Pine.
Yeah, the White Pine League continues to be the most entertaining league, no doubt about it. Kamei defeated Troy 28-20, so the Cubs are 2-1 overall. Mm-hmm. We talked about Clearwater Valley. They had a gauntlet to start the season, right? They opened with Raft River, then they played Prairie, then they lost by 1 possession to Genesee when Angus Jordan threw a touchdown with 25 seconds to play. And they're sitting there thinking, man, we're 0-3. We got to get it going. Well, they did in a big way on IdahoSports.com on Saturday as they defeated Logos 82-44. I think Clearwater Valley is set up now to maybe go on a run.
Well, I think they are. And they've been that team that we've looked at since the beginning, saying, boy, Clearwater Valley, and they've just been right there. And then we look at a score and go, oh, maybe not. Oh, yeah, there they are. And so, they're another one of those teams that after this weekend, we're going to look at and go either, yep. It's going to be a great year, rest of the year for them, or it's going to be, okay, they're going to be settled down in the bottom half of the pack. So, there's not a lot of wiggle room in the White Pine week to week once you get to this point of the year, and staying in that top half is really, really important as you get to the end of and heading into the postseason, especially for the Rams this year.
Yeah, current standings in the White Pine League: Prairie and Lapwai tied for first. Both are 3-0. Genesee is 3-1. Kamei 2-1. And then Potlatch and Clearwater Valley are tied for 5th. They're both 1-2. I've kind of said all along, Paul, I think there's a good chance the White Pine League could get 5 teams into the playoffs. As I see it right now, the 1A D1 postseason, all of the conference champs automatically get in, and then the rest are assigned at large. I think it's going to be all District 4 and District 2. I don't see a second team from District 3 coming out. No,
and I think you're right. I think Notice is 3-1 overall. Haven't played a conference game. I think that if a team's going to do it, it's them. But I think you're right. I mean, things tend to come down to District 2 and District 4 in the 8-man ranks and 1A D1, and I don't really see it being any different this year, really. Yeah,
I mean, you look at District 3, you look at that Western Idaho Conference. Wilder is 1-0. They barely defeated Rimrock 12-6. Idaho City is 1-0, like we mentioned, but they're 1-3 overall. Notice hasn't played yet, so I still like Notice in the conference, and I'm just not sure there's a second team that's going to have a strong enough resume right now. Wilder is probably the best chance, but they're 3-2, and there's going to be teams from right. Districts 4 and 2 because of the strength of schedule that I think are going to elevate past them. So,
and this year Wilder plays Greenleaf, and Greenleaf is at the bottom of the conference. So Wilder, who's right now number 1, I mean, they're going to end up being 4-2, 2-0 in conference after this weekend. And is it strength of schedule, or is it because Wilder is there? And so it's going to be these next 2 or 3 weeks. And again, that Notice game is one that Notice Idaho City is one of those that I've earmarked is watching, just to see how that movement happens when Idaho City wins or if Notice wins. Then you got Rimrock in between, kind of going, hey, what about us? And they're there, and they're kind of in a good spot 2 or 3 where they belong. But I think that number 2 spot between Notice and Idaho City is really going to be decided this week, and I think it's probably going to be Notice.
Yeah, I still think they're the team to beat there. And then in District 1, we kind of have to talk about it. It's Wallace and Lakeside. Those are the 2 teams up there. They played twice. They had their first conference matchup in Wallace Friday night. This is a really good game. It kind of flew under the radar because teams, generally aren't paying attention too closely to what's going on up north, but Lakeside won a wild game, 56-52. I can't wait for the rematch.
Oh yeah, it's high scoring. I mean, it was close. I mean, that's a fun game to be at and watch. And so, they play the last game of the season, I think. So, it's a great time to play a team that you barely beat or barely lost to the last game of the season when it counts.
Yep. And so for Wallace, they're a young team. They might be a year away. Lakeside has the senior experience. Vander Brown is a great running back for Lakeside. And so it's going to be fun to watch those two duel again a little bit later on as well. So it's kind of the 1A landscape. Wallace will play Clark Fork this week. That'll be a pretty interesting D1, D2 matchup. Glens Ferry gets their conference action started, hosting Raft River. Logan Green thinks that Glens Ferry can be kind of sneaky. I guess we'll find out in District 4. I do think there might be a third playoff spot available from District 4, and whether it's Glens Ferry that can get it, or maybe Murtaugh, just based on their overall records. I think Lighthouse Christian at 0-4 has dug themselves too big a hole to get an at-large spot. I think they're going to have to run the table in conference play, and they're already one conference loss down. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I love Logan. I think he's a very smart man. But I'm going to agree by maybe 40% with Logan on that pick with Glens Ferry being on that spot. It's just, we watched him play early on, and of course that's early on. And they're a talented team, and they got a lot going for them. But being in that conference is tough. I mean, you've got Oakley and Raft River. It's Glens Ferry isn't going to get sneaky and sneak past Raft River. It's not going to happen. And so when that does happen, they're going to be 0-1 in conference, and I think they're going to fall to 1-3 overall. So yeah, I mean, maybe if Murtaugh doesn't do much the rest of the year and Glens Ferry can hang on for the rest of their season and sneak in, maybe. I think they've got a pretty decent chance to do it with the rest of their schedule. But I think even if they do sneak into that first round, I think it'd be a quick one for them.
Yeah. So that's kind of the D1 landscape as we see it. We'll step aside and take a break. And when we come back, we'll break down everything that's going on in the D2. Last week, it was a light schedule in terms of ranked teams in the D2. So it kind of allowed some of those secondary teams to have the spotlight to themselves. It'll be a lot of fun to break that down. You're watching/listening to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, brought to you by the Idaho Division of Public Health. And we'll be back to break down all of the D2 action from this past week and get you set for the week ahead right after this word from our sponsor.
It's time to start planning for back to school. That's why I got my kids vaccinated for COVID-19. Kids 12 and older can get vaccinated. The vaccines have been researched and tested. They're safe and they work. And I hope everyone will choose to get vaccinated too.
All right, we're back on the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. Brandon Baney with Paul Kingsbury. So the D2 top 5, just like the D1, there wasn't much in terms of the media poll. There wasn't a ton of change at the top. Cary remains the top-ranked team. They had the week. Castleford continues to be number 2. Horseshoe Bend 3rd. Dietrich 4, and Kendrick 5th. That's how the 3 seasons. Like we said, a lot of those teams were off last week. Castleford did beat Hanson 50-8, which, the Wolves 5-0, 2-0 now in the conference, and seem to look strong.
Well, and Castleford has that win against Dietrich that I think everybody's looking at and going, what happened there? What happened? And Dietrich is, played, state champion, they got the target on their back to repeat, and a lot of good players as well. Peyton Snedden was quarterback in that game. After that Castleford game, Dietrich's made a couple changes and kind of swapped out power for Snedden, and they really just changed spots. And they're the two studs on that Dietrich team. You don't really lose one and gain the other. They just thought it was time to take a quick change and move the chess pieces around a little bit, and it's worked for them after that. So they had 5 turnovers in that game. Not to say Castleford isn't a great team. It's just sometimes teams have those games where it's like that blow up hole in golf. Everything goes wrong. And luckily, when I golf, the max I ever give myself is an 8. It's just a rule I have. So I never have the really bad blow up holes. And if you lose a ball, that's penalty enough. You don't get a penalty for losing a ball either. So looking ahead, like we mentioned this week, we're watching Dietrich come into Butte County. And with the changes they've made, they can throw. They got Jet Shaw that can catch and run. Kid's fast. Dietrich is still a very good team and a better team, I think. And the hate mail should go to Brandon at IdahoSports.com. I think they're a better team than Castleford. I think it was that blow up game that maybe shook Dietrich awake maybe a little bit. I'm looking forward to be proven wrong. I mean, I would love nothing more than to see Castleford come out and just put a picture of me on their dartboard and use that to propel them to a championship. I love to see those teams that haven't had success have success. And maybe that's why I liked seeing Dietrich win last year. I mean, it'd been 48 years or 52 years, whatever it was, since they'd had a championship in football, and they got it. It was great. And Castleford, coming out, this week, who are they playing this week again?
Camas County.
So Castleford should win this week. And so it's really going to set up that the conference standings coming in late in the year. Right now, Castleford 2-0, Dietrich 1-1. Castleford's probably going to be 3-0, and Dietrich going into Butte County. It's not a conference game, so it's not going to affect that conference standing at all. So Dietrich's still going to be 1-1 in conference after this week. So the other teams are Cary hasn't played a conference game, Camas hasn't played a conference game. So that's one of those conferences where after this week you're really going to see that shuffle that I mentioned happen, and see who goes up and who goes down. And then it's going to be that week after, I think, when you get in that heart of the tougher part of the conference schedule, when things really start to solidify in those, in those conferences that have those 5-6 teams where it really matters, those last 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is going to happen. It could, and it would be interesting. Let's say Cary beats Castleford, and let's say Dietrich knocks off Cary. Those two play in the regular season finale. Then you got a 3-way tie at the top, and everyone's beating each other. It'd be kind of wild.
And we've seen it once in a while. It's a lot. Some different conferences have different ways to get their team into state. Kansas City playoffs. They go down to points. I mean, I've seen coin flips happen, which I hate. I absolutely hate the coin flip. Your whole season comes down to a coin flip. Hate seeing that. But having a 3-way tie at the end, I love it. I love the drama in sports, especially when it matters going into a state tournament. I like the drama when it's positive drama. And so I think it'd be exciting to see. And again, everybody has a chance at that point. Going into it, everybody has a chance to get at the state tournament at that point. So yeah, I will root for that scenario. I agree with you 100%, Brandon.
Okay. So chaos reigns.
Chaos reigns. I'm a big fan of chaos.
All right. So you mentioned it. The big game is going to be Dietrich at Butte. I think it's the 8-man game of the week easily. And we're going to be bringing it to you on IdahoSports.com. 4:30 kickoff. So it's a good little Friday matinee to whet your appetite for one of the other countless games we're doing Friday night. It's going to be really good.
It is. It was listed for 7. And this week kind of got the message, hey, it's at 4:30, because if you remember last year, the lights came crashing down in Arco during a big windstorm. And they're going to be fixed next week. And so this is the last week they'll have to do that afternoon game. So luckily Logan is able to, hop in the car, and we're going to make the trek to Arco, and after the game, stop by Tailgaters and have some food and then head back. But it's, both teams coming in averaging right around 50 points a game, giving up, Butte gives up 24, Dietrich 17, so two teams that score a lot and don't give up a lot. Something has to give, as they say, in a game like this. And even though it's a meaningless game, it's not a conference game, a lot of people are watching it to see just how good each team is. And it comes with Butte County not being, like they have been the last couple of years and kind of on the upswing. Are they really that good? And Dietrich losing to Castleford, are they really that good coming into Butte County? So each team has a lot to prove to other people and to themselves as well. But I think it's a lot of people on the outside looking in to this game that, in the end don't matter, but the voters are really going to be watching this game. And I'm excited to be there. I think I'm really glad we scheduled this early. So it didn't look like we were just jumping on a bandwagon here at the end, but it's going to be a fun game. There's a lot of great players on both sides. Like I mentioned, Butte's a really young team. So if they're this good this year, watch out for next year. Dietrich has 6 guys that have 25 plus tackles on the year. So their defense is tough. They can move the ball in the air, on the ground, and I'm talking both teams. So it's going to be fun. It's not like we're going in and it's going to be, spread offense on both, and we're driving 3 hours to watch an hour and 15-minute game. It's going to be a fun game start to finish. I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, bring an extra Mountain Dew for the scoreboard operator, will you?
I'm not sure if I'll share, but yes. In fact, the PA guy there, I can't remember his name. Been there forever, and he's a great guy. And I think I remember last year he was retiring. I hope he didn't. But they're in Arco. They are so friendly. I mean, they love having us there. They roll out, the red carpet. The press box is right on top of the field, and there's a kind of a deck that goes around the whole press box. And so we're outside the press box on a deck with the fans right there, hearing every word we say, which is a little disconcerting at times, depending on how the game's going. You understand that. But it's just a fun atmosphere. It's just an absolute joy to be there and do those games. And so, I'm looking forward to being at that Dietrich and Carey game on the 22nd. We're looking at possibly that Castle Ford at Carey game on the 15th. We talked about it this morning a little bit behind the scenes. And so I'm going to kind of see if we can rearrange some schedules and get to that. Because, we talked about it. I'd do 8-man games every night of the week if we could. So getting more of those in the better. And, hopefully everybody's been watching those, the Idaho 8-man 3 stars every week put out by Will Henneke. They're fantastic. I mean, no one knows the 8-man game and more into it. I mean, he's got, the cell phones and the contacts of a lot of guys in the state to go with that. So if you're an 8-man fan, make sure you check out those 3 stars every Monday morning.
Yep. And that's right on the homepage of IdahoSports.com for sure. Up north, White Pine League, Kendrick, of course, looking very strong, 3-1. Yeah. The lone loss was to Oakley, a D1 school. So I thought that Lewis County, and they might still be, Lewis County had a good chance to slide into that number 2 role in the White Pine League this year. Deary's been down. Timberline's had problems with illness in their program so far.
Right.
And so I thought this is a prime opportunity for Coach Madrell and Lewis County, the Nez Perce Highland cul-de-sac co-op. And I knew there was a gap between Kendrick and the rest of the league. I didn't know it was an 82-12 gap, but the gap is there.
It is. And if you look at Lewis County's schedule the rest of the year, they've got Deary on the 8th, right? They've got Timberline, and then they've got Logos. And so they could finish the season 3-0, which would drastically help their chances of coming in, like you said, coming into that second spot, where Timberline, I think they had to cancel a game.
They had to cancel 2.
Yeah, cancel 2.
They went 2 weeks without playing.
Yeah, and so they play Prairie's JV tomorrow, and then they finish up Kendrick, Lewis County, and then Meadows Valley. So, Timberline has a chance there of maybe coming out 1-3 to finish out their season, minus that Prairie JV game. I think Lewis County would probably going to end up in that number 2 spot.
Yeah, I think it'll all come down to that game with Timberline. Timberline already defeated Deary on Friday night, 18-12. They scored like a 78-yard touchdown with about 3 minutes to go. And it's easy to forget, but last year Timberline made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. They went 4-4 last year and did advance. So I think it does all come down to that Lewis County Timberline game. And now I'm not as bullish on Lewis County as I was. I think Timberline, if they can get it together and overcome these problems that have plagued their program early on this season, I think it's going to be a pretty even matchup. Yeah,
and I think it will. And really, the best team will win in that one. I don't think we can go into it saying, "Yep, this is the team that's going to win." So it's definitely one that, like you said, we're keeping our eye on just for that second spot. I mean, it's Kendrick is. I think someone mentioned that Kendrick was going to be really good this year. That was me. That's right. So, they're sitting up top of that conference, and they're not going to get dethroned. So it's a battle for second place.
And that was me. I was 95% with you on that one. Not a lukewarm 60% like I was earlier. So
nice. And it's still to be seen, just how, if I'm 100% wrong and you're only, 95% wrong, we'll see what happens as we get to the end of the season, I guess.
Right. Well, North Gem was my pick, and they didn't play last week. And I keep voting them into my top 5 in the media poll, but they are not in the top 5. Not enough people agree with me. North Gem is 3-1. Their only loss is to Carey, the top ranked team. How are they not in the top 5? I know. I'll get off my soapbox, but
no, I get it because, I voted I voted in these media polls for years and years and years, and we have the luxury of seeing the whole state for what it is. We don't have a coverage area, and so the other voters have coverage areas, and that's what they focus on week in week out. And normally they're kind of the cheerleader for that area. And so a guy up north, that's maybe in Bonners County, really has no idea what's going on down in District 5 in the 8-man ranks, and doesn't have time to really do a lot of investigating either. And so, looking at records, looking at conference standings, that's what they go off of. But yeah, it's North Gem, I think, is definitely worthy of being in that top 5. So I wouldn't stop if I were you.
Yeah, I'll keep beating the drum. And then another team that hasn't been in the top 5 since the very first week and is just kind of quietly going about its business, Mullen St. Regis. They've played their conference opener against the Wampus Cats from Clark Fork and won 68-8. We talked to Mullen head coach Stetson Spooner last week on the North Idaho Prepcast. It was a really good conversation. I think everybody should go listen to it for not just Mullen talk, but also kind of just general philosophy talk as well. And that you can do that on the homepage, IdahoSports.com. There's a drop-down menu of all of our Prepcasts. You just click on the North Idaho Prepcast. But they've got a good thing rolling up there, and they'll probably just continue to fly under the radar as long as these teams from District 4 and Kendrick keep winning. And I think that's exactly where they want to be ahead of a potential deep postseason run.
Oh yeah. And I think they're going to get deeper. They went out in the first round at Dietrich last year. They've got that Luke Trogdon, Adam Ball. I mean, if those guys just keep doing what they do, stay healthy, as they say, Mullen's got a really good chance of going really deep this year. And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy than Stetson Spooner. I mean, he's been a friend of the program for years and years and years and years. And we love what he's doing up there, taking two teams, bringing them together from 2 different states. That takes some work, and it takes a special coach to be able to do that. And he's doing a great job.
Yeah, and he was pretty quick to deflect. He said, really, I'm just the head coach on paper. He said, really, it's my counterpart, Jesse Allen from St. Regis, Montana, that really got this thing put together and keeps us organized and keeps us on track. So he's a very humble guy as well. So
humble guy too. Good.
Yeah, super cool. All right, let's real quick visit District 3. Horseshoe Bend had that non-conference game where they traveled all the way over to Idaho Falls to play Water Springs. Came away with a 50-30 win. And as I look at District 3, obviously Horseshoe Bend is the favorite. I'm starting to think that the preseason coaches poll got it right. Council 1-0 in conference, 3-1 overall, and Council had a very impressive 56-12 win over Tri-Valley.
I mean, how cool is that? I mean, Council hasn't been, in that conversation for a while, and they used to be in it year in and year out. I mean, Council was in it, and it was always fun to watch. And now you're seeing Council coming back, and I love seeing that. So watching them be at the top of their conference with a few games left, and I think they've got a chance to probably stay at the top of that conference as we get through and get through the rest of the season with Garden Valley and Horseshoe Bend, and then Tri-Valley, Salmon River at the bottom. But it's it's really a race there for that 1, 2, 3. But Garden Valley, I mean, that's a team that Blaine Meyer was featured as one of the 3 stars this week. Rushed for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns. So these great teams have great players behind them, and I guarantee if we looked at Blaine Meyer's defensive stats, they'd probably be just as impressive from that game, because that's just what those kids do in the 8-man game. I mean, they go out and do a 60-yard drive down the field for a score, then turn around and play defense. It's just how they roll.
Yep, for sure. And so for Council, they finished the season. They're on a bye this week, and then they have at Garden Valley, so they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for what's probably their most important game of the year. Then it's Salmon River, and then they wrap up with Horseshoe Bend in a game that could very well decide the conference title there. So that's going to be
and I'd like to see what our schedules are here as broadcasters, to see if maybe we can get somebody out, a team out to that Council Horseshoe Bend game on the 22nd. Early on, I'm sure we looked at that and went, Council Horseshoe Bend, last game of the season. What else is on the schedule that week? But looking at it now, that's going to be an interesting game, and I think we're going to try and get there.
There's a lot of good. I don't know who made up the schedules, but it seems like
they're
backloaded with a lot of great matchups this year. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch. Of course, we got to get to October 1st, and then we'll see how it all shakes out from there. But it's going to be another good slate of some conference, some non-conference 8-man action. And of course, the big headline game is Dietrich at Butte County, Friday, 4:30 p.m. kickoff right here on IdahoSports.com.
Yep, it's going to be an absolute fun. And what's nice about being at a game that's at 4:30 is my game will be getting done when everything else is starting. So I can actually really pay attention to what's going on, on the Friday night flash on the drive home and see what's going on with scores being updated and seeing how those games are going, and not just doing a game at the same time as everything else. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. A nice quiet 3-hour drive there and a quiet 3-hour drive back, just listening to, to you guys to broadcast. Well, not you, you're taking the night off on Friday. Good for you. But and really not off, because you're still going to be working. You're just not doing a game.
Right. I have a Thursday night game this week. So
yeah. And you've got that voice that can just lull me to sleep in a good way. It's just that, that dulcet tones of Brandon Baney. So yeah,
boy, that's a nice backhanded compliment if I ever heard one. That's
that was a solid 60% positive compliment right there. I swear.
Well, we're about 60% out the door anyways. Let's just
I hope we're more than 60% done. I really do.
Yeah, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll be back to break it all down again next week. For Paul Kingsbury, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, presented by the Idaho Division of Public Health here on IdahoSports.com.